Well, let's talk about the new thing that WCW is going to be trying here. We've never discussed this because I'll be honest, until we started researching this show, I don't remember hearing this phrase. We've all heard the phrase booking committee, but Dave would write that the WCW organization has now created a steering committee as opposed to a booking committee. The committee is, quote, responsible for discussing with our director of wrestling operations, Dusty Rhodes, the direction of and emphasis on the various WCW money streams and the priority placed on each one. So the committee, composed of Jim Crockett, Jim Ross, Dusty Rhodes, Terry Allen, which is Magnum TA, Jim Barnett, and Jim Hurd, is there to set the long term direction and emphasis and will have weekly meetings. A steering committee. Now, it's almost described as if it is not necessarily to chart the course of what's important on TV, but kind of. But we're also tying revenue to it. And I mean, listen, anytime you can get in one of those meetings, that's the real guts of the business. I understand why you would want to be a part of that. But what can you tell us about the steering committee? Did it have any value? What did it entail?
Well, that's a good question. Is this another grouping of people to help make decisions? It was awkward again. I used that word 2 or 3 times already. So it was very awkward, and but it was what it was. We had a set of rules that we were given, and a set of criteria that we were given. So there obviously we were encouraged to work within those restraints and that scenario. But it was always hard, man. It was always hard because the politics were still deeply involved in the decision making, and sometimes that just doesn't play well. Sometimes it's not smooth, and this was one of those situations where we had a steering committee, which I never got, and it was what it was. I mean, it was another way to get more people involved, more cooks in the kitchen. It was compromised and decision making, and so it was hard. It shouldn't have been as hard as it was. It was not that difficult to figure out, but it was what it was, and we all had the objective to be real, to be, this is what we're doing, and it was hard to manage all that because you couldn't get the politics out of the situation, and that was hard. That was very hard to hurdle and to maneuver.
Now, Jim, I want to ask you about Jim Hurd because I feel like at times he gets a bad rap and some of the criticism is warranted. People say things like, oh, he had never been involved in wrestling. He didn't know what he was doing. And listen, it's hard to argue that he didn't have an incredible resume for wrestling prior to this. However, I do want to give him some props for some of the great things that happened on his watch. We got Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat in that wonderful trilogy. We got Terry Funk coming out of retirement for an incredible series of matches with Ric Flair. Big Van Vader was on his watch. The Steiner brothers rose to prominence on his watch. They had sponsorships with Coors Light, and they had their first tennis shoe deal with Ruse. Those are things that had often eluded wrestling companies, to have a beer brand and to have a sneaker deal and those type things. So he did a lot of great things, or a lot of great things happened on his watch, rather. But one of the things I got to give him credit for, as silly as maybe a steering committee sounds in hindsight, if he knows that he doesn't know everything, what better way than to get together some of the smartest minds in the industry and create a committee? Like, if he's not strong in the booking, let's get a booking committee. I'm not really sure what I'm doing here with the rest of the other aspects of the business. Let's get a committee together. Leaning on experts, that's kind of a good thing for any manager, no?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. But you can't divert yourself from the politics, and a steering committee, a booking committee, a committee of any kind is going to create political issues because you're not going to be able to get everybody on the committee that is beloved or respected by the majority. So it's hard to escape, uh, politics. And politics in pro wrestling in a boardroom type deal or whatever is always dangerous. because people get their personal feelings and their feelings for their buddies involved, and it makes it really tough to achieve success and development. There's too many personal issues that people have to deal with. So, but in theory, to get all these minds together, if they were to be objective, is the right way to go, because you get a lot of feedback. If guys are honest and they're not trying to manipulate their own agenda, then I think you're making the right move. It's just so hard to get the committee, for the lack of a better term, a steering committee, whatever you want to call it, booking committee. It's hard for those guys to become objective because they find themselves with a little bit of power and influence. So, but I think in theory, it's a good idea. In practicality, it's really hard to, to look at this thing objectively. So, and I think that's kind of where we were on this deal. And the basic theory is good. Getting objectivity on that group is challenging, and it's not necessarily good, but it's challenging. So I Herd did do some good things. It's just that I've always believed that you need one guy to be in charge of creative. You need one guy to manage the creative direction of where the company's headed and who's going to be featured. And then when you get along the way, you're trying to determine who's going to be featured and in what way. You've got a scenario where personal politics become deeply involved. So if you're a flair guy, for example, just using that as an example, you get that's one agenda, that's one political party, so to speak. So it was hard in that regard, I thought, but I thought the idea was on point. But I didn't like the way that the thing was configured.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California. I came to Save with Conrad because I've heard Conrad talk about how he helps people all the time save money and the best route to go for getting some mortgages and finances done. And having heard so many different testimonials in the past, it made the most sense to go this route. We were in the market for a new house and we wanted to know what we could afford. So we spoke with Steve and then Diane to get through the pre-approval process to see what we could afford. And then once we were able to understand that aspect of it, that was when we were able to shop around for a house to get a mortgage through Save with Conrad. Everybody on the team was great. Everybody really explained everything fully to where it was more in like layman's terms to where I could understand it as someone not in the business or having shopped around for houses too many times. So being able to understand every step of the process and talking with everyone on the team about that was really, really helpful. And it made me feel really confident that I was going the right route. I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. I know that sometimes people look at it and they go, oh, they're based in Alabama, what could they help me with? But I'm out here in California and they were able to square everything away and get things done really quickly, as opposed to sometimes even people out here don't move as quickly as the Save with Conrad team. So everything was really well done, really efficient, and I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California, and I was able to get into my dream home with SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.